while coming back from Nainital with Dr. Subramanian Swamy after what I believe is a historic day, because if we win this Char Dham temple takeover case, that will have a ripple effect in other laws by which temples have been taken over. So I would ask Dr. Swamy now. Yeah, he's here.
Yes.
Dr. Swamy, when did you first hear about this Char Dham Act, and what is this act doing?
Yeah, the act actually came into force in early January of this year, and in somewhere towards the third week of January, the pujaris and the priests of these temples, and particularly of the Kedarnath and Badrinath temples, they came to my house and saying that, we are totally depressed because the government is not, despite being BJP, has taken over completely our temples, and including the management and on the selection and disciplinary action against pujaris, and there's no one listening. So everybody in our area said there only one person who you should go to, and that is me. And so they came to me, and I asked them to give me some documents, which they gave, and it was clear that this was a complete violation of 3 or 4 sections of the Constitution which deal with the fundamental rights.
So I'll ask you the specific questions on. First, let me tell the audience that this act has in section 3 basically taken over 53 new temples.
That's right.
That is what this act has done. And before I ask Dr. Swamy the question on this, I would please request you all to subscribe, because I have heard that people watch it but don't subscribe. So please do subscribe to the channel. That is important for the future videos. Dr. Swamy, you fought the Chidambaram temple case in a bench headed by Justice Chauhan and Justice Bobde, as he then was. Today he's the Chief Justice of India. There, Dr. Swamy, you won a case which had been taken over in 87.
Yes, correct.
Dr. Swamy, what was the argument and similarity do you find in that case and in this case?
Well, the one similarity is that the takeover was based on the fact that there have been financial irregularities, and therefore they have taken over the fact to set it right. But unfortunately, they in that particular case where they got caught, is that they had no material on the financial irregularities. It was all just a series of assertions, and of course they won in the High Court and the lower courts, and then in the Supreme Court I pointed out that. Now here there is even much worse, because there's absolutely no documentation of any good documentation or bad documentation. There's nothing to show that there was any mismanagement. Just rumors being spread by various people. So why did they take it over? In the case of the Savanayakar and Nataraja temple case, they said explicitly that they want to rectify the financial corruption that was taking place. But they did not say for how long they're going to take it, because that was one of the issues, that you can't take it forever. Now here, they are actually saying they want to rejuvenate the temples. I mean, this is not a job of a government to rejuvenate temples. They can give money to temples and say, please rejuvenate. But the temple becoming, and the board which was set up, that was even more hilarious, because it made the chief minister as the chairman of the board, and then all the ministers, the MPs and so on. And then they said this was in perpetuity. That is, tomorrow if the Congress government comes power, they have already ready-made access to these temples. So therefore, I think what happened in Tamil Nadu was much, much simpler and easier to deal with than what has happened here.
Dr. Swamy, in the quote you mentioned that rejuvenation is not something the government can do, and you mentioned some gold plating of Tiru.
Yes, that's right.
What was that about?
See, if the Government has taken over a long time ago Tirupati temple. And then the board which was set up, that board decided that the entire temple will be covered by gold plating. And they wanted to make it into a golden temple. Now I went to court and said this is none of their business, because it's pujaris who are in charge of the temple, and its beauty or its lack of beauty and all that is their job. And on the temple, on the walls of the temple, are all kinds of carvings which describe, how puja is to be conducted and so on. And they were going to cover it up by drilling holes into the wall, and then on a wooden thing, taking gold sheets and then sticking it that way. So the High Court of Andhra, at that time it was United Andhra, they sided with me and quashed the order for gold plating.
Dr. Swamy, in that Chidambaram temple, paragraph 65, is of seminal importance because
Yes.
the court established certain principles of law
Yes.
as a part of judgment.
Yes.
What are those principles, and how would they, in Char Dham temple takeover case also and other temple takeover cases also,
Yeah.
how would that apply in all these cases, and what is that principle of that the court has settled in your 2014
What the
case?
court has said very clearly is that you must make out a case that there's been financial misappropriation. And that financial misappropriation must be replied to, the charge must be replied to by the people who run the temple. And in this case it was the pujaris called the Dikshitars, who do all the pujas and so on. After that, the job of the government is to rectify the situation, penalize those who have been doing corruption, corrupt acts and so on, and then return it within a reasonably short time. And so here there is none of that. They have not asked anybody that this is the accusation against you, please answer it. They have not put in, they have in fact declared it will be in perpetuity. And so that's a violation of Article 31 in bracket A of the Constitution of India.
Dr. Swamy, Article 31 says that you can take over management in public interest for a limited period.
That's right.
But that also presupposes that there has to be an element of natural justice.
Absolutely.
That every temple is separate.
Yes.
If a temple had some mismanagement,
Yes.
then they have to be issued a show cause notice, as
Yes.
anybody else has to be,
That's
any
right.
other entity
That's
has to
right.
be.
That's right.
But in this case, an omnibus law has been passed.
That's
Why
right.
do you think, if I ask you a political question moving
Yeah.
beyond the law,
Yeah.
why do you think that such an omnibus law has been passed for taking over temples suddenly?
I can't believe that this chief minister would sanction such a thing, because I know him well enough to say so. He's after all my own party man and someone we meet frequently. I feel that someone from Delhi has sort of compelled them to do this, and I'm going to try and find out who is that person. And I'll urge the Prime Minister to see that that the Chief Minister is encouraged to withdraw this order, this bill, which has now become an act, withdraw it and restore the original status quo position.
Dr. Swamy, interestingly, that today you got a fabulous order,
Yes.
but before that, when I was discussing with certain people, initially they were happy that no, good BJP is in power and now we will have a modern law which everything will take over. And I even that time raised this question, as you have said in the court also, this act only talks about the chief minister.
Yes.
We have seen in recent 6 months how state governments have gone out of hand.
That's right.
And you are serving everything to the future government on a platter.
Yeah.
And they will have to do nothing. They will just say, you thought this is the best way. So the CM has come in and has become basically the decider of the fate of
Yes.
all these temples, along with IAS officers,
Yes.
which has not been a happy experience in
Yes.
South India and many other parts of the
Yes.
country.
Absolutely. No, you see, they must understand. We have gone tom-tomming about being a secular country. We have a constitution. And the constitution very clearly says that I have a fundamental right to prayer, and if I'm a denomination, as many of these temples are, then I have every right to decide how to conduct puja, who will conduct it, and so on. So where is the necessity for the state to enter into this? There was no widespread demand that this should happen, and even if there's demand, there's no law which can back it. So it appears to be for very obscure reasons, which smell of corruption, in my opinion.
Dr. Swamy, what are the main grounds of Article 25? We know temporary takeover.
Yeah.
But Article 14 also seems to be violated in this, in the
Yes.
sense that how can you pick and choose which temples to take over?
That's
Why
right.
not all the temples of Uttarakhand?
That's right. And 14 also requires that we be given the principle of natural justice.
Notice.
And therefore notice, and then given and asked to reply, and then deal with that reply, and then only take action. So there is 14, 21, so many articles of the Constitution are violated. And therefore I'm really surprised why would he agree. And of course I saw the Attorney General today, Advocate General today in the court, and I'm not surprised. He seems to be a bit out of date.
Swamy, it was a lengthy argument spanning almost 45 minutes.
Yes.
Where you thoroughly explained the law, and
Yes.
there was very stiff opposition from
Yes.
the Advocate General, who himself was present,
Yes.
because generally Advocates General are not present in the
Yes.
first hearing.
Yes, right.
Generally a standing counsel or
That's
something.
right.
So do you, and he took a lot of technical objections, this or how do you see the case proceeding further now that the court has issued notice on the stay application also, and as well as the main petition?
Well, I would think that now it's they got 3 weeks, and they have to make a decision, because the Attorney General, I hope, will tell the Chief Minister the exact story, that the arguments are all stacked against them, and the probability of their winning the case is very low. And in any case, even if they manage to succeed somehow in the High Court, there's a Supreme Court, and now the Chief Justice is the very person who has now been reported as observing that governments have no right to run temples.
In fact, Justice Bobde was also part of the bench which gave the historic order in your case
That's right.
for freeing Chidambaram temple.
That's right. Absolutely, he was. In fact, when I argued, it was a great pleasure to see him very incisively bring out the points very sharply and posing it to the other side, whatever we got for this as a reply. So I am very confident that we will succeed in this.
Swamy, any last thing you would like to say?
Yes, I would say that people may have any grievances about the temple and the pujaris and so on. We are coming out of almost 1,000 years of brutalization of our temples, and so there should be some healthy outlook to see that temples which are suffering for lack of funds do get funds, and the society organizes that, and also the living conditions of the pujaris must improve. After all, they have families, they have children, they can't get them children educated. Even if they wanted the children to also become pujaris, that also needs a lot of education. So I think we should now remember that originally our temples were social centers, where not only you went to pray, but you also had marriage halls there, you had dancing schools there, Bharatanatyam used to be taught there, astrologers sitting in their shops, all kinds of things. So it became a kind of a community event, and that's how we have been able to preserve our Hinduism.
This leads me to a next question. What is your view, like when one travels to US or UK, all these temples are basically now community centers.
Yes.
You have Independence Day celebrations there, you have Diwali celebrations there,
That's right.
and almost all big temples have regular Raksha Bandhan festival, Diwali festival, Independence Day festival, Republic Day festival.
Absolutely.
So they are actually acting as temple plus.
Absolutely.
Which is not something which is happening too much in India.
You are absolutely right. And,
Do you think temples should become a celebration of Independence Day
Yes,
and all
yes,
these
cultural festivals,
cultural
music
festivals,
dancing festivals, all this holy, everything. It should be a place to go and even learn Sanskrit. You see, you go for the whole day, 2 hours you spend for your children learning Sanskrit, then you do something else. The variety. Then there's a lot of good food to eat. So it should be a social center.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Swamy, for speaking to us, and And everybody hopes that temple takeover becomes a thing of the past,
Yeah.
rather than newer and newer states taking over temples.
That's right. That too BJP.
Thank you, Doctor.